Yes. What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Veterans Minimum. Boy Lamb here at the Lamb Shows. You can find me at Veterans Minimum. You can find everything for the show. Let's get it out the way now. Patreon roll call. Shouts to all the members of the Patreon. Patreon.com/Veterans Minimum. Check it out. A lot of extra content on there. We're ramping it up, I should say. Impy's in the building too. Shouts to my guy, Young
Always
Shows.
wrap it up.
Always wrap it up. You got to strap up. You know what I'm saying? You never know what could happen. Nick Chavez, Christopher Velasquez, Daniel Gibson, Derek Platees, Devin Rondon, Ryan Pisner, Corey Johnson Hoops. Thank you all for your contribution to the Patreon. And in particular, we got a new pledge, $10 from Alexander. No last name, just Alexander, like a Brazilian soccer player. And Marshall Tokarski pledged for a whole year. Thank you and congrats. Marshall, I'm going to reach out to you sometime this week to send you the merch that you're going to get for the annual subscription. Imp, NFC East. A division I know very well.
This is going to be an interesting division.
A division that's been laughed at the last couple of years. What are your overall thoughts on the NFC East from an outside perspective? Because I am very passionate about this one.
This is going to be... Okay. I think the division is going to come down to two things or one thing. Can the Washington football team offense be half decent, and can the Dallas Cowboys defense be half decent? I think those are kind of the key, because I think Dallas's offense is going to be elite. Mm-hmm. They got the offensive line back. Mm-hmm. 3 key starters are back. Dak's back. Zeke looks sexy. He looks
shredded.
He looks thin.
Yeah. I usually don't like the fantasy community is like, oh, best shape ever. He's put on 12
but
pounds
with
a month.
Zeke,
but it actually shows that he looks like, he had a little bit of a gut.
Yeah.
Last year.
And you remember Zeke was known as, earlier in his career, he was the abs
Wear
guy.
the crop top, the abs guy.
So
he was doing a lot of this.
And that's what he was doing.
He was doing a lot of this.
But to be fair, he probably knew last year he had no shot. The offensive line was terrible last year. Mm-hmm. So I really think it's just going to come down to that. Can Washington's offense be half decent? And can Dallas's defense be half decent? I really think that's what it's going to come down to. Because I think those are the two teams to beat. I like what the Giants did in the offseason, right? I like some of the moves.
Yeah.
I like the Galladay.
Well, I want to go. I think Dallas and everyone is hoping Zeke returns to form, because Zeke was, as someone that I took Zeke 3rd overall in our fantasy league, and it was a tale of 2 seasons for me in fantasy. I was 6-0 in those games with Dak Prescott, 107 total yards, 6 touchdowns. The rest of the way, 78 total yards and only scored twice in 10 games without Dak. So everything just fell on Zeke's shoulders. They were putting 8 men in the box and hoping Andy Dalton and who is that other dude that started for them?
The Italian.
Yeah. The Italian dude. Pasta fagioli. Yeah, like that dude that was fucking starting for them. And they just kind of took away Zeke. And Dallas is coming off a 6-10 season. They're trying to avoid back-to-back losing seasons, have not recorded 2 straight sub-500 seasons since they were 5-12 over 3 years from 2000 to 2002. What's his name?
Ben
DiNucci. Let's go. And he was hyped when Italy won the Euro Cup for sure.
And Garrett Gilbert.
Yeah.
Damn. I mean, the season went down the drain when Dak got hurt, right?
Okay, so
you're going to pull up the 1-4. The defense was terrible.
I think, yeah, their hopes of having a good season went down the drain. But their team wasn't exactly the fucking Chiefs.
Yeah, but I think that had a lot to do with the injuries in addition to the Dak injury.
Right. They were 1-3 with their 1 win. Do you remember what their 1 win was?
Nah.
It was when Atlanta blew that
40-point lead or whatever. 30
it was like in the 20s, but they blew
the game ended 45-42 or some crazy shit.
They recovered the onside kick, so that was their only win.
Yeah.
So and Dak was having wild numbers, like 400-yard passing games, 300 yards, multiple touchdowns, but they were also chasing the whole game.
Yeah.
So I do think there's a little misconception. This is not to take away from Gallup, Amari, CeeDee Lamb, Dak,
the young
Zeke,
tight end,
Blake Jarwin. That's the offense was not the issue, But the defense was so bad that they were in all these holes and they were throwing from behind. That's why I think their numbers were a little bit inflated.
The offensive numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's still a lot of talent there. I actually coined them the Chiefs of the NFC. In that first month, I was looking like a genius until Dak went down.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of that had to do with the deficit that they would always fall in.
Yeah.
I agree with you that the defense for them is the biggest issue. They spent 6 draft picks on the defense. And then on Washington, the flip side is they bring in Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is my biggest addition to this division. Again, let me just preface this with these division previews. We're not giving you picks. We're not giving you anything else but the biggest additions, subtractions, storylines, and players to watch. Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think this is the best team Ryan Fitzpatrick is ever walking into, top to bottom. I think Washington has... They're my pick to have the best defense in the league. It's not really a hot take. I love all the additions that they made in free agency and in the draft. And I even like what they did on offense, too, with
Curtis Samuel.
But Ryan Fitzpatrick in particular, I think he's coming into the best situation. A lot of weapons on this offense, bro. Gibson, Logan Thomas.
Let me tell you something. De'Ami Brown from UNC was their 3rd-round pick.
Yeah.
He could have went higher in the draft. Mm-hmm. He's gonna show out, I think, too. I think they have 3 really good receivers, an awesome tight end, to your point. Converted quarterback, by the way. Which is cool.
Logan Thomas. LT3.
Great.
You know why they call him LT3, right?
Was he number 3 on Virginia Tech?
No. He was Lawrence Taylor, LaDainian Tomlinson, Logan Thomas.
Got it. Interesting.
So LT3 is what they call him.
Yeah, I hear you. Addition, Dan Quinn, defensive coordinator, Dallas.
Okay. Formerly of the Seahawks, Legion of Boom.
Formerly a head coach of the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah.
You're big. This is one of your not a hot take, but one of your things that you stand by is some guys should be coordinators, some guys should be head coaches.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying Dan Quinn shouldn't be a head coach because he had some good years.
He also went to a Super Bowl.
Yes, so I'm not. I think this could be a stopgap for Dan Quinn. He can come to Dallas, turn it around. Even if they're middle of the pack, that offense is going to be so good that if he could, that's why I started the conversation off. If they could just be halfway decent.
Yeah, you don't want Dallas to be a top 5 or top 10 defense. You just don't want them to be 27th.
Be 15th.
You want them to be 15th, 16th. Yes, I agree with you.
So I think he can do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's just Micah Parsons, right, is a stud.
Yeah.
Kid they drafted. Just get the defense. Just be middle of the road because the offense is going to be extremely high powered and they're going to score a whole bunch of points. And knock on wood, that offensive line's healthy, as I mentioned. So I know it's weird, but I think Dan Quinn is kind of the key to the division in terms of an addition, and it's a coach.
Yeah.
So
no, I agree with you. And going back to Fitzpatrick a little bit, I think he brings experience. I think you saw what he did with Miami. He didn't have those wild 4 turnover games during Miami. And I think now you got Terry McLaurin, you got Gibson, you got Curtis Samuel, like we mentioned, the Brown, the wide receiver that got picked in the draft too. And, they got the Sims boys too, also played pretty well in the playoff game against Tampa Bay. I think that defense is going to be so phenomenal that I really think they're going to be the best defense in the league. That front 4 is wild. They lose
front
Ryan,
7.
The front 7. We'll get to a linebacker in particular. They also bring in William Jackson, a stud corner. But that was probably the weakness for them in the secondary was corner.
And guys overperformed last year too.
And I just think Fitzpatrick is going to be in a situation where he don't need to do anything extra. Miami's defense was really good last year too. So he's stepping into a role with better offensive weapons now. And Washington's defense, I think, is going to be way better than what Miami had last year, despite how well Miami played. I just think Fitzpatrick, he don't got to fuck it up. And from a betting perspective, they're 50-1 to win the Super Bowl. I think those are some dope odds. But in the back of my mind, it's can I really see Ryan Fitzpatrick lifting the Lombardi Trophy? I can't.
They may not even win the division or make the playoffs, so that's an interesting.
Well, I think it's a mistake that they're not the favorite, personally.
Okay.
I think they should be the favorite, and I think one of my favorite bets is Washington to win the division.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are caught up in the Dak hype. The line has moved significantly on the Giants. They were 9-1. Now they're 5-1 to win the division because of all the splashes they made this offseason. But I think Washington is the team to beat, and a lot of it has to do with Fitzpatrick.
Yeah. I'm with you. It's funny, Ron Rivera over the course of the offseason multiple times has mentioned, like, Ryan doesn't have to do everything. We've put pieces around him. He even kind of went on the record and he actually, thought back to Carolina, where a lot of the time it was just Cam essentially by himself. I mean, he had some pieces around him, but it was a one-man show, generally speaking, when Cam Newton was kind of firing on all cylinders. So he's kind of drawing comparisons to the Panthers and basically saying, like, I've done that before. I've put it all on the quarterback's shoulders. I don't want to do that again. And he even kind of said with Washington, it's interesting now because all of the pieces are here. Now we bring in the quarterback as opposed to having the quarterback and then having to put the pieces around him. So, he's said it in the public a bunch of times already. Fitzpatrick doesn't have to do everything. But, man, you got a pretty solid backup in Heineke, too. That quarterback room is interesting. They almost beat the Buccaneers in the playoffs.
Yo, man. They gave him a good test.
They gave him and Washington gave him a 2-year deal.
Mm-hmm.
Basically saying, look, we're extremely comfortable with you as the backup. You proved it to us already. And look, if something, God forbid something happens to Fitzpatrick, whether it's not playing well or injury, they feel really good about that backup. So I think the Washington quarterback room is extremely interesting. And you have Kyle Allen, who is Ron Rivera's guy as well. So, Fitzpatrick's going to come in as the number one, of course, but I do think there will be some competition. I think it's Fitzpatrick's job to lose, but I like the room.
Subtraction.
Go first.
Kevin Zietler from the Giants, the offensive guard.
Okay.
So last year, to get analytical, PFF, he posted his lowest grade of his career, but it was still 32nd amongst all guards in the NFL. So that puts him at about a starting grade. And he, in 2019, when the Giants first got him, career highs, right? Watching the Giants, he was the one person that wasn't an issue on the offensive line, only allowed 2 sacks, only got called for 3 or 4 penalties. And he leaves and goes to Baltimore, who have been trying to find the replacement for Marshall Yanda, who retired. And they're really good at the tackle positions with Ronnie Stanley and Orlando Brown. But inside is where they have a lot of issues, Baltimore last year. So they feel a need with him leaving. But him leaving the Giants was big because I know they're high on Matt Pert and Lemieux also. But
they have some issues on the line.
They do. And he was the most, all right, we don't need to worry about him this week. Like, he was just solid.
Set it and forget it.
Yeah, he was just solid. So the Giants losing him, especially with what the expectations are for this offense, all these new additions, like all these tools that he has in the toolbox are dope. But if you don't protect number 8, Daniel Jones, you're going to be in trouble. So I think Zietler leaving the Giants is the biggest subtraction for me in this division. Because also, not for nothing, there weren't a lot of subtractions. So I had to show some love to the big uglies.
It's funny because my answer was going to be like Carson Wentz. And it's not because of like how he's going to impact the Eagles. It's more so like what that's going to do for kind of Jalen Hurts and what it's going to do for the Eagles as a whole. Like, the offense is going to I mean, you watched the offense change a bit last year.
Right.
I really like what they're doing for Jalen Hurts. The offensive line is healthy, right? You get Brooks back. You get Lane Johnson back. You get the one other really good kid. So you're basically getting three offensive linemen healthy back, similar to how the Cowboys front was pretty depleted last year as well. That offense is going to change. I think you're going to kind of see a Lamar Jackson Ravens light with the Eagles. It's going to be a real run pass option type of an offense. And I'm really intrigued to see kind of what they do with that. So obviously there wasn't much kind of like Tomlinson left the Giants. He was pretty solid, right? But you're right. There wasn't that much, not much happened in the NFC East, which is generally speaking a good thing, right? When you think about in football, at least, when teams are bringing back the same group, generally speaking, that's a good thing.
Yeah, continuity.
So,
but that's more for. I think that plays into for offensive line and for quarterback, wide receiver more than any other positions.
Yeah, but when you're learning a brand new system, I think it's important.
I get that, but one of the reasons why Pittsburgh was so good all these last couple of years is because they had the same offensive line year in, year out. Mm-hmm. The teams that are replacing 3 starters, moving this guy from right guard to left tackle and shit like that is where you have some of the issues. They bring back Jason Kelsey,
Yep.
and they also draft Landon Dickerson. Spend a high draft pick on offensive line too.
The Eagles had 14 different starting offensive line combinations, and they allowed the league's most sacks, 65 sacks. That's by a wide margin. So you get Peters, Brooks, and Lane Johnson back. Like I said, I think it could be an interesting type of a Ravens, a Ravens up in Philly, but they got some weapons, man. Miles Sanders, Devonta Smith, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, top 5 O-line. They're putting the pieces around Jalen Hurts. Like, there's no denying it. It's similar to the Giants situation. You're putting all of the pieces around the young quarterback. Obviously the offensive line could use some help, but generally speaking, the Giants have a good cast of skill guys as well. So they're you have the chess pieces. Now it's time to operate. So I'm really curious to kind of see what Jalen Hurts can do with the opportunity.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair. I will say one thing that's caught my attention about Philly is I think it's going to be a bad year for Philly, and I think that they're gonna need to figure out if Jalen Hurts is the guy, because you move on from Carson Wentz also, who I'm not ready to give up on, but I'm also a Carson Wentz stan for many reasons.
Nah, I think he's going to have a big year.
I think so too. Eagles are 12-1 to have the worst record in football, and I don't like the coach.
You don't like Sirianni? Mm-mm. I mean, I like what he did.
To be fair, I don't know much about him.
He was the coordinator in Indy.
Right.
A team that, got the job done, and they didn't have many weapons.
Yeah, but how much of that was Frank Reich?
Yeah, I mean, look, but that's the guy you're working underneath, so you're probably, absorbing all of that. I don't know. I'm curious to see what they can do. But look, and the thing about Hurts, the cool and interesting thing is, this could be an audition for him too. He's, in theory, if the Eagles don't play well, he can still show flashes, and then maybe he gets a job with another team, and they can kind of still go their own way.
Well, they spent a 2nd-round pick on him. I think they want him to be the guy, especially moving on after Carson Wentz.
Crazy.
But I hear the idea behind what you're saying isn't bad. I get it.
It's audition either way, whether it's for the Eagles or for another team, because he's young. And I do think there are believers of Jalen Hurts around the league. Again, with kind of where the quarterback position is moving, right? I'm sure, there's some, offensive minds watching him saying, "Oh, I can make that work," right? Or I can, move this around and I can make that work. So, just again, with Wentz leaving, curious to see kind of what happens with a full season under center.
Last thing I had in my notes has nothing to do with addition or subtraction, but if you had to guess, how many times has a team made the playoffs with a losing record in NFL history?
A handful. The last time it happened was Seattle.
Prior to that, it was Cleveland and Detroit in 1982. Both went 4-5, but it was a strike-shortened season. Then it was Seattle, who won the NFC West 7-9.
They won the playoff game.
Yeah, they beat the Saints, the Beastquake. You know where we were at for that game?
No.
Your summer house.
Yeah?
Yeah.
He got the team on his back.
And then the Peyton Manning Colts lost to the Jets.
Upstate,
baby. We were upstate.
Yeah.
Remember that dude at the bar looked at me? He goes, "Hey, you're a rugged fuck."
You were hyped.
I was hyped. I was that hyped.
Yo, the division will be better. I think the teams are going to be beating up on each other. The NFC East reminds me of the AFC East. The teams may not be as...
It's not fair to Buffalo.
No, I think...
And Miami.
What do you mean? You don't think... I see... Okay, what I mean is I think there's going to be 3 teams kind of with similar records by the end of the season. Whether they're as good... What I'm trying to say is I think the Cowboys, the Giants, and the Washington football team are going to have a similar record by the end of the season. And I think the same thing will be true for the Bills, the Dolphins, and the Patriots. Whether it's, again, 10 wins, 11 wins on one side, or if it's 7, 8, or 9 wins on the other side with the divisions, I think it's going to be like a 3-team race in each division.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on to storyline in the NFC East. For me, you kind of mentioned it before in passing. I think it's Dallas's defense. Dallas was 1-3 with Dak, and then he got hurt. But even prior to that, the reason why they were 1-3 is because that team was giving up like 120 points a game. They were just so bad defensively, couldn't generate any turnovers. And then when Dak went down, they started to play a little bit better, but I think it was because the offense went so ball control, or at least tried to, that the defense wasn't on the field much.
Got it.
And I just think that they spent 6 draft picks on the defense. It needs to just take a leap, like you said, from
worst to middle of the pack.
Yeah. And that's really it. Because they were like on pace to be historically bad. And I think they were like a top 15 all-time bad defense from like a yards perspective or points. But this is a team that needs to turn it around because they have the weapons in place to make noise. But I think what you're going to need is that defense to just improve just a little bit. So for me, it's the defense for Dallas.
Yeah. And again, I think when you have a coach that a seasoned, grizzled coordinator, again, who has experience being a head coach, getting to the Super Bowl, I think that's an invaluable asset for a team. You know, from everything that I'm reading on Dan Quinn, his guys love him. You know, tough kind of a coach. Players coach, though.
28th in defense, points
last
against.
Year?
Yeah, last year, yeah.
I think if they can just be decent, they'll probably win the division. But again, if Washington's offense can be decent, you know, that can, you know, say a lot as well. My storyline?
Yeah.
Can Daniel Jones put it all together?
DJ!
6 touchdowns, no picks when airing it out down the field. Throws a good deep ball. I like Galladay in terms of the deep ball. No, I mean, that's what the numbers are saying.
No, I get it, but like...
His problem is in the pocket, turning the ball over, the fumbles, things of that nature.
Yo, PFF said he's the best deep ball thrower in the league.
Yeah.
Right. But like...
You're like, I'm watching it and I don't see it.
Yeah, man. What I see is he's overthrowing Slayton by 10 yards. He's throwing it to the team physician on the sideline out of bounds when Ingram is running. So like I don't really see it. Like Slayton should have had 1,000+ yards last year if he could connect on just half the balls that he overthrew him on. So I don't really get it. And also, how many deep throws is he really making? Because a lot of the offense for the Giants was underneath to Slayton. No, not to Slayton, excuse me. Dump offs to Ingram, dump offs to Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard underneath. So I don't know exactly if he's a guy who's airing it out that much.
Do you think the sample size is too small?
It might be.
Yeah.
It might be.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's put up or shut up now.
Remember a couple of years ago when Andrew Luck, his rookie season, didn't win Rookie of the Year because he threw too many picks?
But he threw the ball 50 times a game, 60 times a game.
He had like 250 more attempts than RG3.
Yeah.
And the whole case was he threw less picks, RG3. Even though...
And he had a lot of rushing yards and rushing touchdowns.
Right. But he threw like single-digit interceptions to Andrew Luck's like 14. But it's like, yeah, bro, he threw 300 more times. Yeah. Obviously, if you do something 300 more times, you're going to make more mistakes.
Daniel Jones, 9th in the league in time to throw, 6th worst completion percentage with 9th in the league in time to throw. That doesn't correlate.
Correlation. You know me, dog, with that word.
More picks than TDs last year. You have Saquon. You have Galladay, who you gave money to. You like Slayton. You have the weapons now. Is the offensive line good enough? We'll see. But I think it's put up or shut up now. And I'm fascinated to see what happens because the defense is good. Your boy Bradbury, top 5 corner in the league, right? They bring in Jackson, right? It's there. The pieces are there. Now it's, similar to a couple of other storylines around the NFL. These teams are putting the talent around the young quarterback. Now let's see what they got.
Also, defensively, show love to Xavier McKinney, who was a second-round pick out of Alabama. Got hurt, didn't play until, I believe, like week 11 or 12, and really made some plays with the Giants. Had the interception against Andy Dalton in the end zone to ice that game against the Cowboys at the end of the season. You get him back into the fold. A lot of people were saying it was a steal of the draft last year from a defensive standpoint because he was a first-round pick, but he dropped in the second round. So, yeah, I like the Giants have a lot of interesting pieces that I do like. I wonder if Leonard Williams is going to be able to duplicate what he did last year. Again, got franchise tags, so maybe another year of having to bet on himself to get paid. ultimately, I do think that if he has another year like what he did last year with the Giants are going to give him a crazy contract because they also traded a third and fifth round pick to the Jets. So, yeah, man, it's funny that you mentioned your storyline being Daniel Jones because my player to watch is Daniel Jones.
Nice.
Giants finished second to last, only behind the Jets in offense last year.
That's bad.
299.6 total yards of offense, 17.5 points per game. The Jets were 279.9 yards per game, 15.2 points per game. The Giants were the worst team in the NFC on offense. I wonder how much of that is Daniel Jones, how much of that is no Saquon Barkley, how much of that is Jason Garrett, right?
So vanilla, man.
So vanilla. Mad like...
Why?
Ugh.
Why? There's so many young, hot, upstart coaches in the league. Like, go get one of those guys. Go get a guy who, you know, can fucking maybe have the job for a couple years and then go become a head coach. Like, that's generally what you see around the NFL, right?
Yeah.
The young coordinators, super talented.
And the only head coach that are old school offensive minds that are still like at a high level are like the elite of the elite.
Yeah.
Right? Like Sean Payton, Andy Reid. Even the young guys are like McVay and Shanahan and LaFleur. You know, Arthur Smith also now in Atlanta. So I think Daniel Jones, like, it is put up or shut up. Look, it's his third year. He has all the weapons around him.
Yeah.
Last year, remember when you said Josh Allen MVP and I laughed at you? There's a lot of similarities to Daniel Jones and Josh Allen entering their third year.
Nice.
Stephon Diggs coming, a premier wide receiver. Galladay coming. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is better than Kenny Galladay, but Kenny Galladay is not a jobber. He's a really good wide receiver. So I think what you're seeing is you need Daniel Jones to take the next step, and it doesn't need him to be a top 5 MVP candidate. That would be best case scenario, but we need him to not have a turnover every game.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off, but what you need to see out of Daniel Jones is by the end of the season, you have to say, this is our guy.
Yeah.
If you still have questions,
you take your 3 first-round picks, the 2 next year, and then the year after, and you give them Saquon Barkley to Seattle, and you take Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Love Saquon, but...
I mean, look, it turns out that, you know, where would you be with Darnold? Right? That was the thing. That was the take.
Right. The
and
take
granted,
was that.
we don't know. The jury's not out on Darnold, but I'm just saying, like, you know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah, it seems like the best player from that draft was Quentin Nelson.
It's always the O-lineman, baby.
It is. Who's your player to watch?
Kadarius Toney.
Okay. A lot of Giants love from you, huh?
Yeah, I mean, look, I was big into the draft this year, so generally I'd probably gravitate towards some of the young guys. It could have been Devonta Smith for me either, but great after the catch, which is something the Giants needed, right? The Jaguars were going to take him, and the Giants took him, and I think it was Urban Meyer on the record saying, like, this kid's going to be a stud. I think 11 games last year, he caught 70 balls, 10 touchdowns, almost 1,000 yards. He also carried the ball for almost 200 yards, and 8.5 yards per rush. Gadget kind of a player. I'm looking forward to kind of seeing what he could do. An impressive senior year. Again, on the record, Jaguars wanted to take him, and he could return some kicks too. Just a Swiss Army knife, really talented. Pro Football Focus had him rated as like the best guy after the catch in the draft. I'm curious to see what he could do. I was a fan of Kadarius Toney coming out, and I think they got some backlash for taking him. Am I wrong for that?
Yeah, because the backlash.
Because you have weapons already.
No. When you're last in offense in your conference, you should take as much offense as you can, right? The backlash came from the Eagles leapfrogging you to take Devontae Smith. You trading back because Devontae Smith isn't there. You make a hell of a trade because you get a first-round pick from the Bears to trade with you, and then you still take a wide receiver. So there you just draft position need more so than the player you want. He wasn't best available. You took a need as opposed to best available.
Best available to who?
Sure, that's fair. That's very fair.
I think...
That's a very fair point. That's a point that I always make, too. Like, we're basing this all off
what?
Mock drafts of people on TV.
He had a big year last year. He's extremely productive.
He just reminds me a lot of Tavon Austin.
Yeah, because it didn't work out.
No, but Tavon Austin was
Swiss Army knife, gadget player.
And Tavon Austin, if he wasn't the 8th pick overall when he went,
probably would have, his career would have looked different.
The perception of his career would have been completely different. Tony, if you take him in the 5th round and he turns into Tavon Austin, you're like, yo, not bad for a gadget player. But when you're spending a 1st round pick on him, bro, yeah, it's a lot.
I got another rookie wide receiver we'll talk about a little bit later.
Well, that's it. We're doing team-by-team previews on the Patreon. We're doing the same concept. So check out the Patreon, patreon.com/veteransminimum to get the 4 teams in this division in particular. Imp, where can they find you?
IMPY718. You already know. Twitter and Instagram.
At the Lamb Shows, you can find me. At Veterans Minimum, you can find everything for the show. And we'll catch you guys next time.
Peace.